Hello, my name is Chrissy Hodges. Thank you for joining me. Some of you may be joining because you saw the title of this and you were like, what? This girl is nuts. And I just want to find out how nuts she is. Others may have joined because you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say different themes of OCD. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that, what that is today. But also, if you are here and you don't have OCD and you are here because you're like, that girl's nuts, I want to find out. Let me just tell you that this theme, regardless of whether you have OCD, these are common intrusive thoughts. And you may think, heck no, I have never thought of my family members that way. Yeah, you probably have. Number one, everybody has intrusive thoughts. So maybe if you listen to the video, you'll be able to relate. And then if you can stretch your mind to understand what someone with OCD goes through like this, by the end of this, hopefully you're shaking your head like, I'm never going to take an OCD test again. I'm never going to say OCD, I'm so OCD again, and damn, I'm glad I don't have OCD. With that, I'm going to start with 3 disclaimers, okay? First of all, I'm so glad to be back. The OCD conference was 2 weekends ago, and it's seriously taken me this long to be able to kind of like catch up and calm down. I've been really excited about doing this video for a long time. So the theme on incest. Now, here's the thing. I want to give a shout out to John Hirschfield and his, he did an article recently on false memories and OCD, and he did like this whole thing about don't call OCD like homosexual OCD or incest OCD. And so I wanted to just give a shout out and also make that clarification is OCD is OCD. There are what we like to call themes, and sometimes we'll say subsets, subsets and stuff like that. But it is a medical disorder. We just happen to grab onto these themes. And so if I do refer to it as incestual OCD or incest OCD, know that I'm not saying it's different than OCD. I'm just doing it because it's easier to remember. That's disclaimer number 1. Disclaimer number 2, OCD is not a trauma-based illness. So if you are tuning in and in your mind you're thinking, well, maybe I have this theme of incestual OCD because I have been sexually abused or physically abused by family. Now, yes, maybe you have or maybe you haven't. That's a whole separate issue. This comes up a lot, and I also want to say this, and I said this earlier, is OCD is not caused by trauma. It can be triggered by trauma, but our themes that we rest upon don't necessarily have anything to do with what we've been through or things that may have happened or things that we feel like we need to dig into our psyche to find out. Why? Because when you get a theme, this is what you do. Your radar goes into the future, into the present, into the past. Why do I have this theme? What happened to make me have this theme? Why do I have it right now? I need proof right now. And let's look into the future and what do I need to not do to get rid of it or to do to get rid of it, right? So with that said, this video is in no way, and if you're thinking this during or afterwards, I'm just going to say right now, you do not have this theme because something horrible has happened to you, or if a therapist has told you maybe you were sexually abused and that's why you need to go find another therapist. One that's an OCD specialist that can treat you for OCD with exposure response prevention. So we got that out of the way. 3rd disclaimer, OCD sucks. That should just be the end of the video. It sucks, y'all. And this theme in particular, oh, I just hate it. And here's the thing, you know how I like to lighten things up when it gets difficult. I brought some glitter. This is, if you could see that blowing through there, this is glitter that I sprayed on myself and I'm spraying all around just to lighten up the mood when we talk about incest. So anyway, so then there's that. Okay, now, incestual themed OCD. I bet my family reads this, they're gonna be like, oh no, I hope she doesn't get on there and like say that she had thoughts about any of us. So family, don't worry, I'm not going to, although I have, but I'm not gonna disclose who, except for one situation I am gonna talk about. And I might say things about my dad, but just know that I'm just using him as an example. And not because I've had thoughts or whatnot. But here's the thing about incestual OCD. What does that mean? That means you have OCD. Typically what we like to call the nickname pure OCD. What that is that you have horrible intrusive thoughts, typically and not limited to sexual, violent, blasphemous, and then you have mental rituals, avoidance, not limited to avoidance, rumination, reassurance seeking, checking, rechecking, the groinal, all of the wonderful things that we have that go along with OCD. And a lot of times, OCD, sexual intrusive thoughts, and violent intrusive thoughts, but we're not going to go to the violent piece here, just the sexual, is going to be, they're going to fall on family. And you may think, this is so unfair, it's not right. I mean, why do I have these thoughts? Of course, I'm not someone that wants to engage in incest, so why am I thinking that there must be some truth? Blah, blah, blah. You go down the rabbit hole. Well, here's the thing. OCD attacks things that you're the most vulnerable with. I mean, if it attacked broccoli, and whether or not you like broccoli, that would be something like that would be pretty easy to avoid. And I like broccoli, so I shouldn't use that as an example. But you know what I'm saying? Like, if OCD attacked something that wasn't going to tear you apart inside, then you wouldn't hook to it. So what's one of the main things that you're going to hook to? Family, your loved ones, people that you need as your support system. I mean, OCD has like, you know, it just, all bets are off when it comes to it. It has this agenda of, oh, okay, well, let's see how I can tear Chrissy down a little bit more. Oh, okay, well, let me just take away her support system. You know, because then she'll be all alone, she won't know who to talk to, and maybe she'll spiral down. Because then OCD has control again. So here's what happens, is that when we develop incestual obsessions, so when we think about our parents, our sisters, brothers, cousins, you know, daughters, sons, anyone that we're related to, uncles, aunts, and all of a sudden we're thinking, what kind of monster thinks these things? Well, the kind of person that has OCD. And that OCD rests on the people you love and the people that you care about, because that's going to be a lot of times your first line of defense. Like, I need my sister there, I need my brother there, I need my mom, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, like, you're looking at your dad and you're like, oh my God, did I just look at his penis? You know, and then it's like, well, I can't look at him anymore because I'm going to get the groinal. Look, I'm getting all red. And I think only because if my dad watches this, he's going to be like, what? My dad's a great guy, by the way. But anyway, interestingly enough, this is the way that I always try to describe OCD to people when I'm giving a presentation and I'm trying to tell them what pure OCD is and sexual intrusive thoughts. I always go, okay, so you may think sexual intrusive thoughts and you may think, ooh, that sounds fun and sexy and I wish I had those. And then I always drop the bomb. I always go, imagine your parents naked and having sex. And then, of course, everybody in the room is like, oh! And then I'm like, yay! You just had your first intrusive thought. And they're like, we hate you. And I'm like, trigger warning. Anyway, I try to do that so people will see these are intrusive thoughts that, number one, we don't want. We're not excited about them. It's the farthest thing that we want from our mind. But number two, to normalize it. Because we all have intrusive thoughts, sexually violent, whatever, about everything. If you don't have OCD, you probably don't even notice that you have them. So, I mean, you may, and you're like, wow, that was weird, and I wish that I didn't. But of course, we who have OCD, I say this a lot, we go for the why. So I'm going to tell you, there aren't many times that you get a sexual intrusive thought about a family member and you have OCD, you are not going to go to the why. You know what I'm saying? I mean, how could you not? Because then it's all of a sudden, holy cow, this is something that I absolutely can't control. It's going into vulnerable areas of my life that I don't know how to combat that. It further isolates you. It further makes you feel alone. It furthers making you feel like a monster and a disgusting human being. What kind of person would even have these thoughts about family members? And so that way it is just setting you up to be alone and terrified and exhausted about the amount of rituals you're doing to try to escape it. So, I want to say this before I go into what do you do and how do you talk to your loved ones about it. There is no rhyme or reason why you get the OCD thoughts that you do. This goes back to my initial disclaimer of if you've got a therapist telling you you've got incestual OCD thoughts because you must have been abused sexually, go to an OCD specialist. Don't stay there. Don't dig into stuff trying to find things that are going to cause this. There is no rhyme or reason except the fact that OCD just wants you to be stuck. So if it isn't getting you with homosexual OCD, or if it isn't getting you with, bestiality OCD or whatever, it's going to dig deeper. It's going to go into family. It's going to go into pedophilia OCD. It's going to go into these things that you yourself think people that do this must be monsters. And I'm not a monster, but if I'm having these thoughts, maybe I'm a monster. No, maybe you have OCD. Maybe that's what it is. But it's so easy not to believe that. So I want to emphasize there is no rhyme or reason why you get this. I have had incestual thoughts. Sorry, family. I mean, I can talk to you about it later and tell you what they were. Actually, I'll give you an example. Okay, so I'm not going to mention who it was, but they'll probably know if they watch this. So when I developed sexual intrusive thoughts when I was a teenager, I was having them about a lot of stuff. Mainly it was homosexual OCD, but probably, I would have these horrible thoughts about okay, I'm not going to say who, but anyway, I had an experience when I was younger, when I was about 8 years old, and oh my God, my mom is going to go up in arms when she hears this. I don't know if she knows the story, but a family member of mine showed me some pornographic pictures one time. We were all at him, he's like, check this out, or whatever. And so I look at these pornographic pictures when I was 8 years old, and you're 8 and you're like, wow, I didn't know that it looked like that down there. Mine doesn't look like that. So anyway, I had this weird feeling of oh, what is that? And I feel this weird arousal, which is probably that's just paving the way for the groinal, by the way. And so I get, I see it, and then from then on, and especially when I developed sexual intrusive thoughts, every time I saw this person in my family, I would think, what if I am attracted to this person? And then I would go spiral off and think, oh my God, am I attracted to my cousin? It was very weird. It was very creepy, and it scared me because it made me feel like, what kind of person has feelings towards a cousin? Of course, I always look back to that one incident and said, well, that must be the reason why. Well, again, we don't need to look back in our past of why a theme is caused and why it's not, because all you're going to do is hope that when you see it or when you find it, that all the symptoms will go away, and they won't. They will go away when you get proper treatment, which is what we're going to talk about next. What do you do when you have these horrible thoughts, especially when you're living with your family or you're close to your family and you feel this strong urge to want to avoid them? Because of course you are. If every time I looked at my dad, my eyes were right down to his crotch area, I would not want to see him because I would be scared. Did I just look? Why did I feel this way? Again, I'm getting red. Sorry, Daddy. I'm sorry I'm using you as an example, but it's so true. So what I would want to do is avoid him. What I'd want to do is ruminate about it. And the more you ruminate about whether or not you really thought about it, or whether or not your eyes diverted there, or why are you thinking about your dad this way, or whatever, you think to yourself, oh my God, if I didn't really believe this, then I wouldn't be thinking about it, correct? That's the cycle. So what do? If you don't feel comfortable talking to your family about having intrusive thoughts about them, violent or sexual, no matter what the cause, I would suggest not talking to them just yet, not until you're confident. Who you should talk to is an OCD specialist. You should not talk to a therapist that's going to go, let's dig into your trauma. Let's do talk therapy. No, this is going to make things worse. It's going to make you feel worse, and it's going to go nowhere. OCD specialists are specialized in exposure response prevention. They also might use a plethora of other therapies and tools to help you, like mindfulness, like ACT, acceptance commitment therapy. These are supplemental. They may use dialectical behavioral therapy, which is supplemental, but they're not going to say we need to get to the bottom of this in order for these symptoms to go away. They're going to help you learn to manage the anxiety associated with the thoughts, because I'm going to tell you, and dang it, I do this every time on a video at least once, giving reassurance. These thoughts have nothing to do with who you are. They have to do with you who has OCD. Okay? So that's your one reassurance for the video. Sorry for all you specialists out there that are watching it. Don't hate me. Don't hate on me. But It is important to recognize this because people will get bogged down when it comes to family because they don't know who to turn to. They don't have the support and they get isolated and alone. And that's when things get really scary because that's when depression can happen. That's when suicidal thoughts can happen. That's when you feel like if you have no one to turn to, then you're all alone and things may not get better or may not get better. So it's important for you to hear that these are thoughts produced by OCD and there is effective treatment out there. It is important to go to someone who understands this. You may think to yourself this, and this is what I hear all the time. Yeah, but I'm going to go to this therapist. I'm going to tell, sorry, it's shaking. Like, you know how I am. I get all riled up. They're going to go to this therapist and they're going to tell them and the therapist is going to think I'm a monster. Not if the therapist is an OCD specialist, meaning they practice exposure response prevention, meaning they are an expert in treating OCD, meaning they have success stories. Do research on them. Contact me. I do consultations to help find referrals. I do peer support to help find referrals. You want to go to someone, especially if you don't have your family, to talk to you about it because you're afraid of your intrusive thoughts. It is imperative to go to someone who can tell you, yes, I can help treat you. Let's get started tomorrow. Okay, so we've covered that. Now there's this. Oops, excuse me. How do you tell your family that you have these thoughts? I'm going to tell you, like, I'm doing that because I'm not saying you're in the worst position ever and that you can't do it. I'm doing it because I know how hard it is to say out loud these horrible things that you're thinking that you know aren't part of who you are, but you can't stop thinking about them, right? How do you tell them? Number one, when you're ready. And I wish I had my panel here that was at the IOCD conference with me, Corey, Kat, and Allison. I wish you were here so you could back me up. Here's the thing. When it comes to sexual and violent intrusive thoughts, it is important to disclose that information to people when you are ready or when you're at a point where you think that you may hurt yourself or others. This is when you, and that was, if I triggered you with saying that, my apologies, but that's just a standard thing that we say when we're treating people with mental illness, if you think you're going to hurt yourself or others. So I just want you to know that's standard. So if that triggered you, my apologies. If you feel like you are going to hurt yourself or that you could self-harm or that you're in a position that you don't know what else to do, then yes, please tell someone. So then it's, well, do I tell my mom and dad I'm having sexual intrusive thoughts about them? Again, that's up to you. Kind of a general rule that I try to talk to people about, and I got some confirmation from this from my other fellow advocates, is if you want to talk to your parents without letting them know, or your family, or whatever the support is that you're having the intrusive thought about, without letting them know that they're the object, then just talk in general terms. There are great places you can find wonderful information about these types. The first two that come to mind are going to be OCDonline.com and OCDbaltimore.com. These places have got incredible articles. They've got success stories, things of that nature that you can get and show the people that you need to tell without having to disclose what you're feeling. Because if you aren't in a position where you're feeling confident about what you're going to say, you don't know how people are going to react. I'm just being honest. And you don't want that to be a source of trigger for you to make things worse. So absolutely, some general education and saying, I need some help, I need some support, but I'm not ready to talk about what it is because I'm really embarrassed, I'm really ashamed, or I'm just not ready to talk about it. Most people will get that, and most people will understand. And I guarantee you, when people read the research on OCD, when they read about these particular themes, they're going to get it. You know, it might be a little bit shocking at first because many of you, if you don't have OCD and you're watching this, you're probably like, what in the hell is this? You know, but I'm telling you, this is common. It's a common theme. Many, many, many people out there have it. Many people are suffering. And so what we need is we need more of this. We need more people to know that this is a horrible, torturing, intrusive thought for OCD. It's common. It can be treated. And it also needs to be the person needs to be treated with respect. And definitely not this, oh, I don't know if I can trust you, which I guarantee you if you give people research and information about it, they're not going to be like that. But absolutely, I think it's okay that you treat this with kid gloves. when you're talking to people that you're afraid to disclose the fears. So anyway, then there's that. We can talk more about that at some other time, or if you want to discuss it with me, feel free to shoot me an email. I know it's tough. I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh, it's so easy to tell people. It took me a very, very long time to be able to come out with what I have dealt with OCD little by little. And that came with confidence, it came with recovery, and it came with knowing that I wasn't alone. If you know that someone else has experienced that, then you can be like, oh, okay, I'm not the only person walking the planet with this, right? So, we've covered what do you do? Reach out to an OCD specialist. How do you do that? You can go to the IOCDF website, make sure you vet the therapist to know that they actually treat OCD. I do consultations to help find referrals. How do you tell people? That is up to you. That is, and honestly, to quote Corey Hirsch, it's your story. You are in charge of what you tell and what you don't tell. It's your business. But if you need that support, be generic, be general. Tell people this is what you're dealing with, but you're not ready to disclose. Okay, so I think, it's been a lot longer than I wanted it to be. Sorry, you know how I am, I just ramble. Anyway, yes, OCD with the theme of incest is real. It sucks, y'all. It's horrible, it's embarrassing, it's shameful. You feel like this horrible person. You don't even want to be around your family, you want to avoid them. What if they knew? What if they, what if they knew and they believed it? That's the biggest thing. What if they believed that I really felt this way? Well, you know what? There's nothing we can do about that. What I believe is that this is a horrible theme for OCD and it sucks having it. And I don't know anybody that's excited about it. And if they are, then they don't have OCD. So you are not alone, okay? Please remember that. Oh, and also, sorry, shameless promotion. It isn't about incestual OCD. However, sexual intrusive thoughts, scrupulosity, emetophobia, fear of barfing. My book, Pure OCD, you can find it on Amazon. If you are in need of referrals and resources for OCD, please email me at ocd.chrissie@gmail.com or find out more about scheduling and fees at treatmentforocd.com or chrissyhodges.com. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the community. I love hearing your stories. Please reach out to me. It's so great to hear that I am not alone, and I do want you to know that you are not alone. Recovery is absolutely possible, and you have every reason to hope. Thank you, and I will see you next time. Bye. Uh-oh, I don't know how to turn this off. Oh.